So, you got a new sealed pool but you don't know how to build your deck. Well, in this video I will show you how to build the best deck with your sealed pool in just 4 simple steps. So the first step is to understand the general purpose and idea of your deck. The second one will be instead building the main deck. The third step is the filler part, and the last step will be instead adapting with the god powers. All of these steps are essential for build the best sealed deck, so watch until the end of the video. Okay, let's start with the first step. As I said, this step is to understand the identity of your pool. What does this mean? You want to understand if your pool can be better as an aggro, as a midrange, or as a control. And even on those, like, there are different types, like for example it can be an aggro with like a burst top end, or like an aggro just based on creature, and so on. But how do you understand the identity of your pool, you can think? Well, you can do that in just 2 simple phases. The first one is what I generally like to start with, is to check before the legendary cards, because in those legendary cards you can have like some really big bomb that can carry your games. For example, if you have a really good legendary at like 7, 8 or 9 mana, you want to build a deck that can reach that, so you will essentially play a control. So the legendary cards are for sure the first card you want to check. The second phase that is even more important is that you have to sort all your cards for mana cost, and you will not start at the start of the mana cost, so with 1 mana like almost everyone does, but you will go at the bottom of your list, so in your top end at high mana. Why is that? Because essentially you want to see as the first thing if you have a top end, if you have like 7 mana cards, 8 mana cards, 9 mana cards, and if those are good. And why should you do that? Essentially because now going really aggro in sealed is a bit harder, since there is not even Slayer. So if you have a pool that has a good top end, like some really good 7 and 8 mana card, and I will put there some example, you want for sure go with a deck that will reach that type of mana. So you want to build a deck that can reach your top end, because if your top end is good, you will most likely outvalue your opponent. And you have even to remember that now we have no Genesis, and all the really good Genesis top end card, like I don't know, Avatar of War, Charm, and so on, are no more in the pool. So this means that probably a top end that you could have evaluated like a medium top end, now it became a really good top end, because now it's a lot easier to have a bad top end. So this means that if you have a good one, you will most likely outvalue your opponents. But you can say, okay, this is if I have good top end, but what if I have a bad top end, like for example other cards like there, or if you literally have no top end, like sometimes I literally have just 1 7 mana card as my top end. Well, this is literally why this is the phase 1, so you want to understand the purpose of your deck. If you see that you have no top end, you just know that you have to play aggro, because in this way you can try to outrush your opponent before they outvalue you with their better top end and better cards. So essentially you just want to go really fast, try to hit their face and try to win before they outvalue you with their good card, around at generally 6 mana. So yeah, you have to try to maintain a lower mana curve. Okay, and now we are at the second step, that is build the main deck. So essentially in this phase you will put every card that you think is really good, or even just really solid, like that you know that for sure this card will enter in your deck. But be aware, this is the second step, because you want before to understand, as I said, the purpose of your deck. So that's step 1. Why is that? Those are in this order because there are some cards that are really good but don't follow the purpose of your deck. So for example, All to Ashes, like this card in sealed is probably one of the best card for a midrange or a control deck, because it's a 5 mana and almost board wipe, and is really strong. But if in your first step you know that you have to build an aggro because you have no top end, you will not put this card, even if it's really strong, because essentially the purpose of your deck is to have the board at the start of the game, and if you lose that board, you essentially lose the game. So you don't want to play a card that board wipe your and your opponent board, even if it's standalone a really good card, because this card don't follow the purpose of your deck. And that's why this is the step 2 and not the step 1. Okay, as I said, in this step you want to put all the cards that you really think that are really good and really solid, so you are sure that you want in your deck because follow the purpose of your deck and are really good. But you will not put all those cards that you are not sure about, that are like medium, are pretty solid but not even that much good. Yeah, those cards that you are still not decided on. All those cards you will not put in the step 2, but you will put in the step 3, essentially the filler phase. So in this phase you will be last with probably like 10, 15 card or 20 card that are all like medium, you don't know what to put or what to not put, and you have like 5, 6 spots left, so you have like to understand which card put in and which card cut out. How do you understand what to cut out and what to put in? Well, this is still based on the phase 1, so understand the purpose of your deck and analyzing your mana curve. So this means that if the purpose of your deck is to go aggro, you will put all those medium or decent card, we can say, that essentially lower the mana curve the most possible. So like for example 1 mana drop Choo-Choo, you put that, and so on. You put everything that can give you early pressure, even if it's not a good card, you just put it, because in the big group will do something, you will play kinda fast and you will apply pressure. Instead, if you are going mid-range or control, you want to analyze your mana curve and see where you have currents, some wall in your mana curve. So for example, if you have just like only 1 for mana or 2 for mana or 1 5 mana or 2 5 mana, you want essentially to balance your mana curve. So you will analyze your mana curve and put those mid card that essentially give you a better mana curve and a more spread mana curve, because as we said, the purpose of this deck is not to apply early pressure, but it's just to stay alive. So you want essentially the perfect mana play at each different mana. The best way for do that is essentially to have a kind of balanced mana curve. And now we are at the fourth and last step, that is subscribe to my channel. Maybe it's not that, but I would really appreciate it if you can do that. And now, jokes apart, the last step is to adapt your god power. But what does this mean? So essentially, I think there are just 3 really good god power that are Summon Acolyte, Thievery and Mage Bolt. But all of those god power works best in some type of deck and a bit worse in other type. So for example, Mage Bolt is the best god power for going aggro, because essentially Mage Bolt can give you that last reach that you need for kill your opponent before they outvalue you. So even if they took the board, they board wiped you at 7 mana, you can like Mage Bolt 2-3 times their face for kill them, even because on Sealed there are not a lot of healing, so this is literally a win condition at the end. And even because when you are going aggro and you have Mage, a lot of times you have even like some type of burst like Weird Breath, Epiphany and so on, so this Mage Bolt can really help you to get essentially that last hit. And instead, in an aggro deck, Summon Acolyte and Thievery are not so good. Actually, those god power in Sealed are probably the 2 best god power, but in an aggro deck you will essentially never play Summon Acolyte or Thievery, because as I said, in an aggro deck you have a really low mana curve. So if you find yourself essentially in a spot where you have to pay 3 mana for play a Summon Acolyte with an aggro, you probably will lose that game anyway. And with Thievery is even worse, because it's 3 mana for the card and another mana for play it. So essentially you waste 4 mana with an aggro for almost nothing on the board. So do I think that Mage Bolt is just the best god power? No, I think that Acolyte and Thievery give their best in other type of deck, like for example mid-range and control, because those 2 types of deck want to go for the long run. And a god power like Summon Acolyte or Thievery will help you to outvalue your opponent in the long run, while instead a god power like Mage Bolt can probably fall apart if the game doesn't end pretty fast. But what if I have a pool without Mage, Deception and Light? So essentially you will have War, Death and Nature. So generally on those type of pools I play Create, Nature. I don't do that just if the pool is really aggro, because Create is kinda useless. So in that case I can probably play like the draw of that or like some type of bars or some creature. But yeah, essentially you have literally trash god power in an aggro with those 3 gods, while instead if you are playing a mid-range or a control, Create is a pretty solid choice. Okay guys, this was all I had to say on how to build a good deck with your Sealed pool. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and subscribe to my channel, and even check my Twitch where I generally stream my Sealed run and most of them end at 7 win. And now if you missed the video about the best Sealed tips, go check that, because it was really a good video for give you a win rate boost in Sealed. And I guess see you to the next video.